Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Art and Chat. For today's piece, I'm going to be starting from scratch, and I'm going to show you guys how the beginning process of my paintings go. And a lot of you guys have requested to see this, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started. Okay, so my first question is from Clarice Perello, and I'm just going to kick off this session with a question first instead of rambling my usual long intro, just to force myself to dive into the content first. So let's start off with a question, and then I'm going to explain a little bit about the painting. But yeah, the question is from Clarice Perello, and she asks, do you plan on making sea goddess / mermaid paintings or illustrations? Definitely. If you've watched my artist vlog number 20, I'm not sure if it's going to be released before or after this video. I'm never sure of my releasing schedule, but I am actually already have a mermaid concept sketch transferred onto a panel, so it will become a painting very, very soon. So stay tuned. For those of you who don't know, I love scuba diving, and I'm a huge fan of the ocean. And if you've been watching my vlogs, you also know that my boyfriend has a saltwater aquarium that he's obsessed with, that I have now caught on to his addiction, and now I'm obsessed with it too. Something very magical about the underwater world. I always think like the earth is 70% water, yet we have left so much of the world kind of unexplored. To this day, we haven't really reached like the real bottom of the ocean or seen, all the creatures that live in the ocean completely. So I'm really inspired by the mystery of the ocean, and honestly, even like freshwater things like koi fish or little ponds and swamps, those fascinate me as well. So I just love kind of that creepy, mysterious abyss. So yeah, definitely planning on doing a lot more ocean or water inspired pieces. It's too inspiring to pass up. And real quick before I move on to the next question, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this piece and kind of what I'm doing. It's not really an official tutorial, so please pardon me if this information is not useful or if my ramblings don't make any sense. But basically, I don't really have a specific go-to technique or like a set of rules that I follow super closely. My process for making paintings generally is very organic, and it's very intuition based. I'm not really thinking or using my brain that much during my painting process. And I know that sounds kind of weird, like I'm not I'm not like unconscious or anything, but I almost feel like I'm an instrument of something else. Like the creativity or the ideas are kind of almost, it's like a combination of muscle memory from just practicing a lot and kind of some higher creative force. I know that sounds really weird, but it's kind of how my brain works. So it's really hard for me to film and record voiceover for tutorials because I oftentimes don't have an exact blueprint of what to say, or I don't even remember the steps that my brain went through to achieve certain effects. But I'm gonna try my best to explain things despite being terrible at it. And basically right now I'm just laying down my second to darkest colors first. So I always save like black or the ultimate dark outlines for later. Of course, this is again not something I stick to all the time. Sometimes I might change my mind and lay down like the black outlines first. But lately, my dog wants to leave my room. So I have to lock her in my room because she loves to bark, and while I'm filming, I really don't want her waiting by our door because she'll guard it and then she'll bark at anyone that walks by, and it's just very jarring for audio recording. So I'm gonna let her out of my room as soon as I'm done recording this. But yeah, she's a good guard dog, but we really don't need guarding right now. We need to have nice, peaceful silence in the background so I can film my tutorial. Sorry, mushroom. I love you. Anyways, so yeah, back to my impromptu tutorial. The reason why I don't these days lay down the darkest first is because they kind of conflict with the hue of what I want to accomplish. So hue basically means like the shades of colors. It usually my darkest parts, I actually like to make them the opposite hue of the rest of the piece. So if I'm working with like skin tones that are very gray and pink and green, I like to make the shadows have a touch of blue or purple or something that doesn't really fit in with the rest of the colors. And I think that contrast makes for a very striking balance, but also I have to be really careful because if I blend the shadows with the midtones or the midtones with the highlights and I'm not careful, then I tend to muddy up my colors and get like this medium color that I don't actually want. So yeah, this is, I guess, just a short blurb. I'm sorry, does this make any sense, you guys? I'm still honestly trying to get used to talking while mixing colors, while painting, while filming on 2 different cameras, and it's not it's not always easy. So pardon me if I lose my train of thought or something. Okay. And another thing I've been experimenting with recently is not relying so much on oil painting mediums. I know like a lot of people out there, when we talk about mediums, so myself included, a lot of people, myself included, when we talk about mediums, it's like supposed to make your painting better. Like no one ever says don't use mediums, they're bad for your painting. But I think in some cases mediums are confusing if you use them the wrong way, and sometimes honestly it's better to not worry about mediums, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have a good grasp on just the basics of oil painting yet. I would say leave out mediums. Even me, I've used mediums for a long time, and I haven't painted as long as a lot of more experienced masters, but I've painted for a few years pretty consistently during those times, and I have there are many things that there's many effects and painting goals that I can accomplish without needing to rely on mediums. Mediums really are just kind of, in my opinion, a little extra if you've already kind of mastered the other things and want to elevate your skill set. So I really don't think mediums are super necessary, and when I use mediums now, I actually just use a little drop of it. So I use Gamblin solvent-free gel medium, and for the most part, especially on first layers, you're kind of just mostly worried about blocking in color and filling up your canvas and covering it with as much coverage of paint as you can. So there's really no point in involving mediums yet. That's why I just use a little drop of the Gamblin solvent-free gel medium just to kind of make the oil painting a little bit like more oily and buttery to work with, just to make it kind of spread around easier. But yeah, I'm not actually using it or relying on it for anything other than just making the oil paint goopier. And so, but later on when you're glazing, I actually have a glazing video for those of you who are new. I think I put it out maybe a year ago, it's been a while, but I talk about how I basically glaze to achieve certain effects that are like for luminosity, like the blush on a cheek, for example. I'll glaze with like a lot of medium and very little paint to give it that transparent luminosity. But yeah, for first layers, don't really need to worry about that yet. So yeah, right now I am just trying to get the perfect shade of pink, and because I like to save paint, I always only deposit as much as I need. So you'll often see me having to go back and forth between my little paint rolly cart and my palette. I'm really glad that most of the time my time lapses are sped up so you don't notice how long this takes. But yeah, it does take a really long time. These real-time videos I was honestly a little bit self-conscious about releasing them because I was so afraid people were gonna be like, dude, I had no clue oil painting was this boring and tedious. I'm not going to watch this anymore, or I'm turned off from oil painting forever. I really was afraid of that reaction. But I'm actually really happy. A lot of you have had very positive reactions to these videos. A lot of you actually really appreciated that revelation of how how time consuming and how much of like a test of patience oil painting is. I think maybe it calmed everyone down because the time lapses make oil paintings look so easy, and when you're at home and you're taking a while, or you're struggling, or you seem to be not achieving much in such a long period of time, it's easy to get discouraged. But then when you see other people also taking their time and going just as slow, it's a good validation that you're not alone and you're not doing anything wrong. So I hope you guys felt that way watching my last art and chat, and I hope you feel that way watching this current one. Okay, let me move on to the next question. Ooh, she looks very scary right now. Okay, so the next question is from Constance Mace, and she asks, I would be interested in seeing how you use reference and to what extent do you combine references. In the same vein, I never used reference until recently due to a strange guilt, something whispering in my ear that I should be good enough not to need any reference. However, my drawings are so much better with reference now. How do you overcome such feelings? Yeah, I get what you mean, girl. It's definitely... There is a little bit of that guilt feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about, especially if you're using another photographer's work. For me, it's not, the guilt doesn't come from like, oh, I should be good enough to not need reference. The guilt comes from like, oh my gosh, am I subconsciously or inadvertently stealing someone else's creative ideas or someone else's composition or vision by using their reference, even for practice? And it's hard to not be influenced by the things that we consume, whether it's other art or music or movies. Our inspiration, I feel like, is drawn from like a visual memory, a visual library of things that your brain has come across throughout your day, throughout your week. And for me, if I look at other photographers or use their references too much, I'm always self-conscious that, oh, am I just kind of remembering what they did or the composition or the colors they used and then just applying that to my work? And it's like, am I encroaching on their intellectual property? Yeah, many thoughts like that go through my head because as you guys know from my previous art and chat, I've been a victim of these types of things myself, of like people stealing artwork, stealing ideas, and it's not a good feeling. So now I'm kind of extra paranoid that I'm doing that to a photographer or someone else. The way I combat that is I do concept sketches for my paintings without any reference. So my concept sketches can be super rough. They're sometimes just like a thumbnail, it's like there's no fleshed out details at all. It's just a very basic composition mixed with some rough notes. If there are things that I haven't even had time or have the patience to draw down, I'll just kind of write a little note with words on, this effect I want to add or this color I want to add. And when you come up with the concept sketch on your own, it does give you more confidence that when you look for references, it is just for reference rather than you starting with someone else's photo, starting with their photo as reference and then building your own concept from their photograph, if that makes sense. So, okay, let me rephrase it. So, come up with your ideas on your own without looking at any reference so that you know that your ideas come completely from within your own mind. And then when it's time to actually flesh out your piece or plan your piece into a painting or something more detailed, then use reference as a guideline. That way, your starting point is still originating from your own mind, and your starting point is not someone else's creation. So, yeah, and also I want to add that if you're just starting out and you haven't been drawing for that long, or if you're young and you're still in school, or if you're really sincerely interested in getting better and like learning the kind of basic fundamental skills of art, I would recommend definitely to use reference. Like I would never ever advise against using reference, especially if you're new and you're a beginner and you have so much to learn. I I say this with like 100% confidence. You cannot learn how to draw proportions. You cannot learn how to shade properly or do anything like related to realism without using reference. And even me, my style is not photorealism. Like I often exaggerate my proportions or my features. Even then, like learning how to paint realistically greatly supplements my skill set and allows me to detail my work in a way that tells the story so much more thoroughly and so much more impactfully than if I didn't have kind of those realism painting lessons that I've learned. So yeah, regardless of how old you are or what you're doing, if you want to get better at art, you definitely need to use reference. I also think another rule of thumb with reference is it's actually totally fine to copy a photograph like inch by inch, as long as you don't share it or don't try to gain anything from it. So for example, when I was younger, let's say I was trying to teach myself how to paint. Let me try to just think of a random, okay, let's say I lived in Hawaii and I wanted to get really good at painting snowy white mountains, and I couldn't find any of those locally. I couldn't take photos of them myself. Of course, I'm gonna have to go on Google or somewhere and find someone else's photograph to practice and draw the guideline and reference from. But I think that's totally fine as long as I keep that private, as long as I know like I'm doing it for educational purposes. I'm not gonna later try to sell a print of it or sell the original or gain any sort of popularity, like share it online and claim it as my own. As long as I do that and just keep it to myself, I think that's totally fine. I remember in middle school, I would often try to do studies of Leonardo da Vinci's drawings or like Rembrandt's drawings, just trying to learn how to draw, the human portrait. And that's totally fine. I never took those drawings and entered them into art competitions or, like turned them in for art class assignments because, they weren't mine. So if you want to overcome that guilt with using reference, then don't try to gain anything from using someone else's creativity or someone else's idea. But I think if you genuinely just need help and you want to practice, it's totally fine to do, as long as you keep it private. Oh, I ramble so much, you guys. So yeah, if you're still watching, thank you for sticking with me this long. I am a rambler, and I'm making some progress on this face. Yeah? Okay, let me move on to the next question. This question is from Taylor Murphy, and she asks, I think you mentioned one time that your parents don't really approve of your art. Does this frustrate or upset you? So I think there's been maybe a little bit of a miscommunication or misunderstanding. My parents never disapproved of my art or my art career. So yeah, sorry, Taylor, I don't know which one you mean, whether it's like my personal style of the subjects I like to paint or if it's my decision to become a full-time artist. But either way, I think more, instead of disapproval, it was more like they were concerned for me and they were watching out for me. They wanted to make sure that I was able to support myself and that I wasn't going to suffer, So, I think like any parent, they just get worried about their child. They never disapproved of me, and like they never try to force me to get back into tech, or they never said anything negative or discouraging to me when I told them I wanted to switch careers. They were just more like cautious, like, oh well, be careful, or like, are you sure? But yeah, it wasn't as negative as I guess the question makes it sound to be. But also in terms of my art style, I think like it's not that they disapprove, it's that like my style is not really catered towards their taste. And art is a very subjective thing, and everyone has different tastes. Even people like me, like I do art and I consider myself relatively open-minded. There's still art out there that's like way too intense for my taste. So I just think like just the subjects that I deal with, it's just something that my parents aren't really used to and can't really appreciate, right? It's like they don't like heavy metal music, but that doesn't mean that they disapprove of it. It's just kind of not really their cup of tea. So, but I will say that they do like my art because I think it's, I made it and I'm their child, so they definitely have that kind of natural love for it. But would they buy something that's like my style of art, to hang in their wall if it weren't for me? Probably not. But I know my mom watches these, so Mom, if you're watching this and if you disagree and you actually will buy my art independently of me being an artist, please let me know, because that would be awesome. I think I'm slowly tweaking their taste. I'm slowly getting them into my type of art, because like even just a few days ago my mom messaged me being like, oh my gosh, can I get a print of this? Like, this piece really speaks to me. And I was like, oh, you've never actually asked me for a print of something so like risque. It wasn't really risque. It was one of my drawings where the girl's face was elevated off of her head and you could see inside of her head that was stuffed with flowers. It was like slightly gory, not in an obvious gory scary way, but it was like a face that had been cut off of a head. So usually they would not like that, but recently I think they're starting to really warm up to it, so that's good. Okay, so yeah, as you can see right now, I'm basically almost kind of painting them like puzzle pieces. Sorry, not puzzle pieces, but I'm painting them almost like kind of like a coloring book where you color in section by section. So the thing with painting and especially with oil paint, I think people tend to associate oil painting with tons of blending, and then when people say the word blend, they think of an action that I feel like is very different than what is actually happening, especially with oil paint. And when I blend oil paint, it's not a matter of just doing like back and forth and like the way you'd blend your makeup, for example. It's actually just putting colors that are very similar, not similar, but putting colors that make a nice gradient or a nice transition next to each other and blending them ever so slightly to blur the boundary between the two colors. But by no means are you supposed to sweep your brush across an entire expanse and blend the whole thing, because then you're just gonna you're gonna lose all of your beautiful like shadows, midtones, and highlights. Those are the things that establish the values and the 3D-ness of your painting. So yeah, it's really about placing the colors next to each other and softly only blurring the borderline or the boundary between two adjacent colors. But yeah, don't blend too hard. If you blend too much, everything ends up looking like a round sphere, like a ball, and then that's not nearly as interesting. So yeah, it's my advice. Okay, how is it looking? Just checking on my camera. Yeah, last art and chat, I don't know what happened, but I think I just forgot, like when my computer crashed, I forgot to reload my video camera, so the footage was completely out of sync. But yeah, this time I'm learning my lesson. Also, last time I had this really terrible thing happen where my computer crashed, and at the time I was recording, so I'm actually recording the face video on my webcam, which is hooked up to my desktop, and my desktop crashed and I lost like an hour's worth of footage. Like, it just didn't save. It was in the middle of recording when the computer crashed, so I lost all of it, and that really sucks. So I had to refilm like an hour's worth of footage. So now moving forward, I'm basically like every 10 minutes I just press stop and then press record again immediately after, just to separate my video files into many small clips. That way, if my computer crashes, instead of having to refilm like an hour's worth, I just have to refilm like 10 minutes. You live and you learn, and hopefully moving forward these videos will the commentary part will go more smoothly too. I'm seriously not sure if I am repeating myself or being redundant or sounding just completely nonsensical, but yeah, hopefully I sound okay. I don't sound deranged or anything. I'm really excited for these pieces. I still don't know what color I should make her hair. Maybe I will focus this current session on just the skin tones and then tackle the hair later, and that way I can offer you guys some time to shoot me any recommendations you have for what you want the hair color to be. I always love like hearing your opinions. Oh yeah, and by the way, I came up with a name for this show. So the piece I'm working on right now is for an upcoming solo show at Sally Centigrade, which is this beautiful little gallery in Denver, Colorado. It's coming up in April. I have all my pieces already either concept sketched or already transferred onto wood panels, and I have a few pieces already done. So I'm really excited. I want to, you know, like I said many times before, I want to show my best body of work because, you know, the gallery owners were so kind and gracious to give me the opportunity to like occupy their wall space for a whole month. And yeah, there's only, so I think the month that I'm showing, there's 2 other artists, so there's like 3 little mini solo shows going on. So I'm used to having like being a part of group shows where out of 50 paintings I might be one of them, but in this case it's like I'm only going to be one of 3 artists, so I'm going to have like my own little section and everything. I'm just so incredibly humbled, and I want to do a good job and really show them that, show the gallery owners and also everyone who's been following me what I'm capable of. So I really want to push myself. But yeah, a recent fun development is I finally arrived at a name for this show. I've been trying to think of names for the longest time, and I actually asked my really good friend Caitlin for help. She and I have been friends since college, and she's a linguistics major, super smart, one of the smartest people I know. And since she's a linguistics major, she and I talked for a while, and she helped me brainstorm some cool ideas. So the name for the show is Exuvier, and please pardon me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm gonna hold on 1 second and look up the official pronunciation right now before I continue to butcher it and hate myself. So just a sec. And apparently it's pronounced Exuviae, not Exuvier. So I'm glad I looked that up before I continued to butcher it. But yeah, so Caitlin suggested this because I told her like I really wanted a feeling. So the key word that kept popping up in my head while I was working on the concept sketches for these was exoskeleton, because you see, so all the girls have some sort of opening in their body, whether it's like a decapitated head or their face has been like lifted off and floating above their skull, or like, you know, it's open at the shoulder, and I just, you know, and exposes kind of what's within, which is usually, in this case, like foliage and flowers and something beautiful. So it's almost like gory, but in a poetic way. And I kept thinking of the word exoskeleton, like kind of the way like beetles and other insects or crabs have like a shell on the outside. And humans, for those of you who took biology or are interested, and pardon my very elementary explaining of it, but humans have like an internal skeleton. So our flesh is on the outside and our hard structures are on the inside. And I just thought it'd be cool to kind of flip that around and make the outside of the human being seem like the protective layer. And then the inside is the thing that's kind of soft and hidden. And I also wanted to convey like a storyline of basically the spirit that lives inside the vessel that is our flesh and bones is something that's so unexpected, so poetic and beautiful. 'Cause yeah, when I think of like a painting of a body that's cut open, you just think of like blood and guts and gore and bone and veins. And I think like by putting the foliage there, it kind of, it's unexpected, it's not obvious, and that element of surprise kind of gives it a very special edge, which I really like. And I've done a few pieces that are in a similar theme before, kind of when I was in my experimenting stage, and every single time I did a piece like this with like a cutout, I just really loved it, and I thought it was too special to waste. So that's why I decided to make it like the central theme of this show. And yeah, I've always just kind of, when I think of themes for my pieces, it's never like a complete story from beginning to end. It's oftentimes like a few keywords or a few feelings that, you know, are almost like buzzwords in my mind, and I want to convey those feelings visually. So in that way, I think my work, it still allows my work to be very open to interpretation, because it's not super rigid in its definitions. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my little blurb. about kind of the theme of the piece. And honestly, I'm really curious, without hearing my explanation, what would your interpretation of this piece or other collections or other pieces in this collection be like when you see the cutout and the flowers growing from inside the body? Yeah, like what is the story that plays in your head? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah, another great thing I love about art, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I have to because this is too interesting not to share. One of the things I love most about art and consuming it, creating it, sharing it, is that it's almost like a mirror for the viewer. An artist could have a totally different intent of a piece, and then different viewers will interpret it in their own way based on their own life, their own circumstances, their own experiences and outlook. And so in that way, the way someone reacts to a piece of art, whether it's like viewing a painting or perhaps watching a movie or listening to a song, it is like a mirror. It's a reflection of their individuality. So I love hearing people's reaction to my work, especially if it's a story that I never intended to tell or a story that I never thought could be told with a piece. I just love hearing how people apply my work to their life and their experiences. It's really rewarding. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna tackle one more question while I work on the nose. The next question is from Sasha Doltau. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, but I recognize you, Sasha. You're always leaving me such really sweet and engaging comments, so thank you, Sasha. Sasha says, were you ever into drawing manga? What made you start or stop doing it? Ooh, yeah, actually, I think a lot of artists, myself included, at one point or still are influenced by manga. And for me, it happened in middle school. I was super obsessed with Sailor Moon and just the entire Sailor Moon universe. I think I grew up just being completely drawn to beautiful women, like, just watching Disney princesses. And I grew up in China too, and we had a lot of, I guess, our Chinese version of like Disney, where we had like those very ancient dynastic period films with like really ornate, beautiful costumes, and there's always like martial arts and really cool kind of folklore and these like goddesses or female warriors or like historically iconic, like beautiful women who were powerful and graceful and memorable in some way. And I was always drawn to those stories and that aesthetic of like a woman who was beautiful and feminine yet very powerful and very memorable. So Sailor Moon fit right into that that taste of mine. And it was like a bunch of women, and they were warriors, and they fight for justice, and they all have like a really unique look. They have like rainbow colored hair. And they also, the story, I love that it kind of echoed Greek mythology in a way, like the way they incorporated astrology and astronomy and like the planets and various cosmic forms into the storyline. I really love that. So this whole thing, like the entire package, just was super alluring to me. And yeah, I couldn't resist. I started doing Sailor Moon fan art for a while. I would when was this? I remember during this time, like this was when, but before, like definitely before social media and before things like YouTube or DeviantArt. So Sailor Moon was one of my first exposures to art that was not just like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, like the classic art that you see in textbooks. And I was just so in love with how fresh it was. And manga just, it was so different. It's such a distinct style. And I think that's what's led to its longevity even to this day, is like there's so much you can do with this style. Like there's so much possibility for variety, yet it's like signature and niche enough that it's very, very unique and stands out. But yeah, so for the longest time I would just Google like Sailor Moon. Did I even use Google? I think this was during the time when like Yahoo was the best. So I was using Yahoo, and I would save the pictures. Obviously the professional manga artist who worked for the company that produced Sailor Moon made those like various manga comic manga comic books covers, and I would just save those pictures and kind of draw my own version of them. Yeah, I definitely I wouldn't say plagiarize, but I would definitely just copy them exactly without putting my own twist on them. I would just use them as like my one and only reference and guideline, and just duplicate various Sailor Moon manga pictures. And at the time though, like, I was too young and I didn't understand and I didn't know any better. You know, like, obviously if I were to do it now, I would never ever do that, because, you know, that's not my original work. You know, someone else, some other artist put the time into coming up with a concept and rendering everything and figuring everything out, and I kind of just took a shortcut and like copied their hard work. You know, like, coming up with a composition and color palette is not easy. And so even though I didn't like make a photocopy of it, and I actually did take the time to recreate it step by step manually, I still definitely jumped like way far ahead and did a bunch of shortcuts, because I took their ideas. I took all their planning and research and studying, and I just went and did it. So yeah, I would never do that again. And that's why I think, like, part of my responsibility in having a channel and a platform on online is to kind of educate everyone else the mistakes that I've learned through my experiences. So yeah, sorry, off on a tangent again. But so I was really into doing that for a while. I copied a lot of Sailor Moon art, fan art. Sometimes I draw my own, but for the most part I did studies of it. And I was super young. This was like probably this was beginning of middle school, when I just finished elementary school. And yeah, I think my dad was the one who snapped me out of it. He was like, if you continue to copy other artists, you're not going to ever improve on your own. Like, because the way I was copying, you have to understand, it wasn't like I wasn't following a tutorial, right? There wasn't like some official Sailor Moon tutorial that taught you the basics of like step 1, you know, do the composition, the outline, step 2, like do the shading, step 3, add the details. Like, there wasn't anything educational about what I was doing. I would just copying line for line, and a lot of times I was doing the drawing wrong. Like, for example, I would render a lot of detail first without planning out my entire composition or where everything would go, and I would erase a lot and make kind of pointless mistakes, and I would never learn because I wasn't stepping back and thinking about what I was doing. I was just mindlessly copying like a monkey. So yeah, my dad was very wise, and he saw that. He was like, this is not going to help you improve as an artist. And I think he actually banned me from drawing anime for a while. He was like, you can't do manga and anime for like a year or like half a year. I forgot the exact length of time. And instead he actually bought me this drawing textbook almost. It wasn't like a textbook, but it was like an informative instructional book where I had to do all these little exercises. I think I talked about this before in one of my earlier 30 Days of Art videos, but I basically drew like these geometric solids, like spheres, cubes, cones, pyramids, and then the book eventually had you do still life. So like if you mastered spheres, they would have you do like apples and oranges and yeah, various more complicated things later on. But yeah, I stopped doing manga shortly after I began doing manga. So I think that entire stint was less than a year. And I focused a lot on practicing the fundamentals from that book. At first, I really disagreed with my dad. You know, I was like a young kid. I was like, I do what I want. But I think over time, especially the more I practiced, I actually recognized that I was getting better. The exercises were getting a lot more straightforward and easier for me to finish. I was finishing those sketches a lot faster over time. And like I said before, I think I had this video called My Advice to Young Artists. I think like young brains soak up information like a sponge, and they're very malleable, very impressionable, and with the right role models, the right guidelines, you can really take advantage of the young mind and do great things with it. So I'm really glad that at a young age, I kind of taught myself, or my dad taught me, helped teach me that sense of like practice, 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 and not just kind of doing art that's easy or doing things just for fun. So in a way, like since a young age, I kind of took it as seriously as an adult would. So yeah, I have my dad to thank for that. So thank you, Dad. But yeah, like if you're watching this and you love doing manga yourself, I think like you shouldn't stop doing it. Like I wouldn't discourage you from drawing something you love, but supplement your manga with some actual practice and training and fundamental skills. And yeah, I think you'll actually see yourself improve on your manga as well. Like for example, if I want to start drawing manga now, I think I would do a much better job than if I just did manga and didn't practice in any other avenues of art. So yeah. Okay, oh my gosh. So here just now I made a little mistake. I don't know if you caught it, but I didn't wipe my brush properly and too much paint thinner rubbed off, and I accidentally took out a huge chunk, this really nice shadow that I had implemented before. So another piece of advice for those of you out there doing oils is always check your brush. Make sure that it's not too dry and not too wet. So like make sure there's not too much paint thinner and not too little paint thinner. If you have too little paint thinner, or if your oil paint in general is old, like let's say you deposited the paint from the tube a day ago and you know it might have been sitting out for a while, so the paint itself might be a little hard to work with. You need to use some sort of paint thinner or medium to make the consistency more easily spreadable. But yeah, if you put too much of it, then it'll kind of erase the paint you already have lying down on the canvas. And then if you use too little of it, of course, your paint will still be dry and hard to work with. So it's really, oil painting, it is a level harder or level above, I think, illustrating like with just pencils or dry media, because you always have to pay attention to this one extra factor of checking your brush. And thinking about it, it's actually not just oil painting, any sort of painting in general, or wet media. So watercolor, acrylic, gouache, anything where you have to have a brush and something that deposits onto paper, you have to always check it. But yeah, it's worth it though. I would not trade this experience for anything else. Like I think as tedious as oil painting is and as frustrating as it is sometimes, it is my absolute favorite. Like in terms of my favorite mediums, like if oil paint was like a 10, like if I could rate how much I love mediums on a numerical scale, oils would definitely be a 10, like if that's the highest, and then other ones would be like a 3. Like oil painting is leagues and leagues above everything else in terms of how much I enjoy them. It's just and it's something very cathartic about it. Just the process, especially if you get really into it and have patience, the process of slowly spreading the paint around with a tiny brush, it's really, really cathartic. So, highly recommend. Oh, actually, yeah, I made pretty decent progress on the face. I think I'm going to answer maybe 2 more questions, and then I think this entire video will be around an hour long. I don't want to make it too long. I also probably have to stop filming soon and move on to my other duties today. But yeah, let me just answer a few more and try to really finish up the face, maybe add some more details on the eyes or something. Okay, just checking my camera. Okay, let's do the next question. This question is from Erica Leanne Ashford, and she asks, how do you manage so many social media sites at the same time? I find it exhausting to just keep up with 3, and I would love some help. LOL. Well, Erica, let me tell you, you're right. It is definitely a lot of work. And you know what's funny? So a lot of times, I think my boyfriend and I used to like not argue about this, but he would tease me about this, and we would have like a sort of small bicker. He was under the impression, I think a lot of people are, that social media doesn't really take time. Like just posting stuff on Instagram or replying to comments or maintaining a social media presence somehow doesn't take time. Like obviously YouTube takes time, because especially if you're like an art YouTube channel and you're filming time lapses, like obviously the process of making the artwork and filming the video takes time. But for some reason, I noticed this with like Instagrammers and a lot of vloggers. People assume it's like a super easy job because they assume it doesn't take time. And actually, even if you're vlogging, even if you're not editing a time lapse of a painting, as long as you're editing a video, like for those of you who've done this before, you know, editing videos takes a super long time. So in addition to acquiring the footage and filming, the process of just editing itself takes so long. And same with Instagram. Like, it seems like, oh yeah, you just like, you know, take a picture with your phone, slap a filter on it, write a cute little caption, and bam, you're done. And it's actually not that simple. A lot of times, so yeah, like Instagram, I think it parallels YouTube in that way. It's like, it's deceivingly simple. It's deceivingly lighthearted. My boyfriend used to catch me on Instagram all the time on my phone, and he would be like, oh, where are you always on your phone? I'm like, I'm working. He's like, you're not working, you're on Instagram. I'm like, no, I'm actually working. Because managing social media accounts is not just about posting every now and then. It's about engaging with that entire community. It's about knowing what to post, or observing the trends, reading all your comments, replying to comments, keeping track of what your audience likes, keeping track of, you know, like what other people who are in the same field as you are doing. And yeah, you totally could just like post on Instagram or on YouTube every now and then and not waste your time and actually looking at other posts or exploring that social media platform outside of posting. You could do that, but I guarantee you'll not be as successful, or okay, no, that's a harsh way to put it. Let me rephrase it. It'll be a lot easier to grow and find success on a social media platform if you also invest the time into participating on the platform and like engaging with your audience. So yeah, for me, managing three, so Facebook, YouTube, and Patreon, I do have to give all of them extra attention outside of just posting stuff on them. Even like my Instagram post, something as simple as like, let's see, for example, if I finished a painting and I posted like the nice final image of it, there's so much that went on behind the scenes that you guys don't see, like taking the photo with my DSLR or like finding the perfect lighting for it. Sometimes I actually like go outside my apartment and take it in the shade when it's a sunny day out, and then editing the colors in Photoshop so that it matches the original, because a lot of times when you take photos it doesn't look anything like the original painting. So all that stuff has to be done manually, and then, you know, like you have to also, I do this really old-fashioned thing. I email the photo to myself, and then I open the email on my phone and save it onto my phone, and that's how I'm able to like post an image from my computer to my phone. So yeah, there's so many in-between steps that happen for even a simple like, you know, post of a painting or a drawing to go up. And yeah, I think my tip for managing them in a timely, organized way is to have a written schedule. So nowadays I have to remind myself to post something. Like, if I think there was a phase of time where I was making a lot of YouTube and Patreon content and I didn't post on Instagram for like 7 days, and I didn't even realize it. Like, I was definitely producing content, but I just completely forgot and neglected one of my most important and most dear to me platforms. So nowadays I write down reminders. Like, I try to make sure I post something on each social media platform every few days. YouTube obviously is less frequent because it takes so much longer to film and edit videos. A lot of times, again, like I'm not able to complete a new piece of artwork every day on the dot. Paintings take weeks. Yeah, even drawings sometimes take me multiple sittings. So YouTube is a little bit less. I try to do like 2 to 3 videos a week. And then Instagram, lately I've been really trying to post every day or every other day. And yeah, you just have to set yourself a reminder. And also, like, the great thing about Patreon is Patreon and YouTube go hand in hand, and I'm able to kind of like produce content for both. Meaning, I can, like, for example, my Patreon subscribers get a longer version of my video. So I'll oftentimes upload a real-time version of the time lapses you see on YouTube. I'll upload the video in real time, so they're like sometimes 2.5 hours long. I'll upload that onto Patreon, and then I'll upload the sped up version onto YouTube. Or like for some of my, every month I do like a package of rewards where I'll have a 30-minute video with commentary for all 30 minutes. And on YouTube, I'll have like a 10-minute version of that. So basically, it's not too bad because I am able to produce content for both platforms at once. And it's a nice, neat, like, it's like one project, and they're just kind of two different versions of the same project. And yeah, that allows me to, like, I guess, keep myself sane and on track. Yeah, so in some ways, Patreon is like a superset of all my social medias, like even my work in progress photos, my studio photos, my completed, you know, final scan or final DSLR professional quality images. Those all get shared on Patreon first, and they get shared on Patreon more frequently. And then my other social media platforms just kind of draw from my Patreon page. So that's also one good way I organize my social media life is I post on Patreon first, and then I take the bits and pieces from Patreon and I scatter them around the other social media platforms. Okay. This profile is like really challenging. I don't do profiles a lot, as you guys may know. I love the 3/4 view. I think everyone loves the 3/4 view, whether it's animators, illustrators, painters, photographers. Like the 3/4 view is asymmetrical and interesting and a little bit easier to draw because you don't have to make everything match perfectly. But lately I've been loving profiles. There's actually something very striking about a profile and someone who's not looking directly at the camera. In some ways it's like they're able to capture your attention more, again because I think it's like it takes the obvious away and they're kind of making eye contact with you without directly looking into your eyes. It's kind of like almost a telepathic connection, which I think is super fun. Okay, but yeah, I really gotta do these lashes. Sometimes this is like a funny thing. I'll do the lashes first, even though I know I might have to paint over them, like when I'm refining the skin around the lashes. But I just love how lashes make this part of my painting look complete, and I love that satisfying feeling of having it look complete. So in order to, it's almost like kind of helps me build confidence. I don't like staring at a canvas where everything is rough and in a beginning stage, so it's nice to have a few elements at least look semi well rendered, and it's okay if I have to repaint it later. It's worth the trade-off, in my opinion. Okay, maybe one more question. Let's see. Hi, Mushroom. Okay, I'm gonna let you out. Let's see. Okay, this question is from Lauren Airy, and she asks, "Hey, Happy D, do you ever get anxiety about drawing while we watch you?" Like the idea of messing up. Oh yeah. That is why I'm probably not as good as I want to be in terms of making this, especially this kind of video right now. Even as I'm filming right now, I feel a little bit of stress and anxiety. It's getting better with time, but yeah, I'm definitely worried about messing up, or not just messing up the drawing, but messing up my commentary, or stumbling over my words, or sounding like, you know, someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm really worried about those things, and I really don't know how to overcome it. I really think it's like any other skill. You just have to practice and get more comfortable and get used to being on camera or being watched. I still remember like the first Patreon live stream I ever did. I was so awkward, and nowadays, like when I do my Patreon live streams, I'm a lot better at like kind of moving the conversation along and talking to people via like a chat box. And yeah, so and same with voiceovers. When I first began, I almost had to write the complete script for voiceovers, and now I'm able to just write like a rough outline of a few sentences, like make sure you tackle like these 3 points, but the rest is like purely improvised. And a lot of that, actually all of that, I attribute to just practicing. So yeah, the anxiety is real, but it's not too bad as long as you practice. And I'm very blessed with like a very forgiving audience, you guys, who don't mind that I'm imperfect and who still enjoy listening to my commentary despite my tendency to go off on tangents and, you know, ramble. So I feel very blessed in that way that I have a really nice and friendly, open-minded audience. And actually, so many of you have pointed this out to me in my comment section. I noticed you guys write like, wow, I really love the art community. It's a lot more accepting and kind than some other YouTube communities. And yeah, I definitely feel that way. You do definitely get the occasional troll or person who's just like talking down to everyone else, but for the most part, like 99.9% of the time, everyone is so nice and so encouraging. I often see like smaller accounts finding each other and becoming friends in my comment section, and that's just like so rewarding to watch. Like I love that you guys through me have made friends with each other as well. So definitely, even if it's awkward or I have a little bit of anxiety being on camera, I'm gonna keep producing videos and keep up my YouTube channel and this avenue of my life and my business, I guess, just because it's so rewarding. I can't say it enough. I know I'm like sounding like a broken record at this point, but just being able to know that someone, even one person out there, their life has changed because of you, even in some small way, even if it's just for a day, is so, it's something I have never felt until I started doing art full time. So yeah, definitely super pumped for what the future will bring. So let's see, I might actually call it a day for this face. It's not perfect, obviously, it's just the first layer, but I think I'm gonna do a little bit more refining off camera. My DSLR behind me is still gonna be recording the time lapse, so don't worry, you won't miss a single beat of this entire process. Right now I'm just kind of darkening some of the midtones, and yeah, I'm just going to end this video here. Thank you all to my patrons who took the time to ask me these really fun questions. I'm really sorry I couldn't get to everyone. I randomly picked a few, but I definitely have the entire list saved, and I will be referring to it for any future videos where I'll need ideas for commentary. And for those of you, whether you're a patron or not, I really appreciate everyone's support, big or small. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye!